Well, thank you. Thank you for the amazing and enthusiastic introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here after lunch. And we are competing with a beautiful day and lots of things happening. But you chose right. You chose to be in the right place. I'm here with Rocío Trujillo, and she's actually Regional General Manager of Southern Europe for FIBER. And I'm very interested to talk about how FIBER has achieved the status which has achieved now, and maybe also for the benefit of those who may actually, not know what you are all about. And to me, it's really a company that has revolutionized the whole world of entertainment. So welcome, Rocío. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. And maybe we should start by trying to understand a little bit about what do you mean by the experience economy? What's your understanding? Because to me, means some things that maybe for you is not exactly the same. So tell me how you and FIBER see the experience economy.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks to all of you. I know for the Spanish ones, it's a complicated time to be here at 2:30, so I appreciate it. And then it's a pleasure to be talking to you. We were just saying a few moments ago that I think coming here to the South Summit 2 years ago and talking to you was one of the best public exposures I had after joining FIBER. So it's a pleasure to be doing that again. So well, we talk about experience economy. We like to think about it in FIBER about how do we make experiences, how do we make entertainment, and we're not agnostic here, right? Sorry, we are agnostic here, so we just may be talking about music, we may be talking about sports, we may be talking about cultural institutions, about immersive experience. So how do we make these entertainment experiences scalable and profitable? So when we talk about the experience economy, is that art and that science on making people go and experience live entertainment in a profitable way, both for them from an experience perspective, but also for the producers on a economical perspective.
Okay, all right. So let's talk a little bit about how you deal with those spaces, and you were alluding to the real life experiences and live events, how you deal with these spaces that can be maybe rewritten through engaging global audiences, but also generating sustainable revenue. So that's your kind of magic trick. So you manage to engage people globally, because I think that this is a key factor, the fact that you are a player in, globally. And I think that the local culture maybe is something that we need to address as well when talking about the experience economy. And also how you generate sustainable revenue. So to talk about that, I would like to have many questions. But the first one I would like to ask you is, how do you take cultural content, and we can address the local element, whether it's classical music, maybe through a candlelight event, or maybe through historic IPs. And I know that you've been doing lots of things also with Stranger Things. And so tell us a little bit about how do you transform that into a scalable, profitable business model?
All right. So we believe the usual balance between art and profitability, or experiences, what do we say that? Well, the usual, like whenever we talk about art, whenever we talk about experiences, that doesn't mean that it is not profitable. Mm-hmm. And the way we do that, and the way we think about it is there's many amazing content around the globe. There are many things who work, many things that actually people like and are engaged with, and people like to pay for that, and they just go to experience, and they take out their wallet, they go to experience something in any of the verticals of the live entertainment. But the problem here is not that the content is not there, is how do we make it available for farther audiences? So how do we how do we make sure that the content is there for the audiences? This is where Fever comes in. And you mentioned Candlelight. We didn't invent classical music. Maybe all of you know Candlelight. It's those concerts, classical music concerts. I see a lot of nodding, okay? Classical music concert, full of candles, and they're hosted in iconical venues. The format is very short. It's no longer than 1 hour, and then you're very close to the performers. Well, we didn't invent at Fever classical music. It is something that was there, and people loved being exposed to that. We just used technology to understand that people wanted to engage with classical music in a way that they hadn't been doing so far. So whenever you, let's say 8 years ago, whenever you wanted to experience some Beethoven outside of your house, so outside Spotify, you had to go to an auditorium, for example, or in Madrid to Teatro Real. Well, some people, especially young people, don't necessarily like that format, right? So we took that insight that there's a lot of people, especially young people, who are interacting with classical music, but they don't find a way to consume classical music in person. We decided, or we defined based on our database, what were the elements that we could infuse into the classical music experience to make sure that people were gonna go and experience it in person outside of the Teatro Real, outside of the auditorium, right? And we created the Candlelight. Well, we are very happy to say that today we're the largest seller of classical music in the world. We sell over 10 million tickets per year, and this year it's gonna be probably 20-30% more than that. And this is it. So we just take technology to make sure that all that amazing content which is out there in the world, it's scaled, shaped, and then put out there. So first shape and then put out there so that it can be ingested and consumed by thousands of more people.
And I wonder if to do that, and we'll get a bit more into some of the details, but I wonder if to do that also you need to be a company which is kind of young at heart, or young, literally. Many of you are young. Your founders are very young. You think that there is something about tapping into what's happening that requires a certain kind of demographic to work in Fever, or that's just like something which is not necessarily the case?
No, not at all, not at all.
Tell us a little bit about that, because maybe we have the impression that anybody who has to work in Fever has to be young, cool, and to know what's going on. Can we other who are not like that also aspire to work in Fever?
So I completely disagree with that, Cristina. You find people of all ages in Fever. I think what really characterizes people there is how we think.
Okay.
It's a way of thinking. And on top of that, it's not even the background. It's not even the studies that you may have, because there's people from all sorts of studies, from actual painters to aeronautical engineers, and then you have all the spectrum in between, right? No, what you find there is people who are very young in the mind, meaning they never lose curiosity, they never lose flexibility, they're not scared to reprioritize things, because, well, I think we skipped all the presentation on Fever and we just went to it, and maybe it's worth stopping here for a second to discuss what Fever is. Fever is the leading global platform for discovery of live entertainment. So you may have seen the marketplace that we have, the Fever app, but it's also way more than that. We have the technology and the marketplace, we have a full data and analytics powerhouse, then we have our own production capabilities, such as the Fever original events, Candlelights, the events that we do together with Netflix, for example. And then we have a media outlet, which is a global, the largest global media outlet specialized in in-person entertainment. And it's present in 550 cities. Fever as a company is present in 50 countries. We're more than 3,000 people. And coming back to your question, I was telling this because growing that much and being so successful so far, tocamos madera, means that we need to constantly reprioritize where we're working, where we're spending our time, where we're spending our efforts, right? So to us, working in Fever is not a matter of where you come from or how young you are, but rather how do you think about problems, how open you are to thinking in a different way, how open you are also to incorporate different pieces of information into your decision process. And if I don't say this, my founders may kill me, on an analytical way, data-driven way. So we are a tech company, we have loads, like billions of data points, and we like to use them to take decisions.
Okay, since I'm representing a School of Architecture and Design, in this case IE, University, I'm very interested in how space is actually playing a role in creating these experiences that you kind of alluded to. Because you mentioned when talking about Candlelight that the spaces are very important. So tell us a little bit about how do you identify those spaces and also how do you treat them or curate them? What's important?
All right. Well, first of all, to talk about the architects, one of my best team players in Spain, he's an architect. And he's just kicking asses with F1. Like he's leading all the analytical side of F1. And I'm just so happy. Like you can see his mindset, his structure, like I love him. All right, so the question was around how do we find venues, treat venues?
How do you scout for venues, and then how do you also maybe curate them to make them, significant?
Okay. Well, on the scouting side, we are very thorough. So we have scouting teams in every country, getting to know all the different iconic venues and opening doors for us so that we can then take the content that we believe it's going to be worth it. Reality is a few years ago, Fever was very small and nobody knew it, and it was very hard to get that access to the venues. Today, we receive a lot of requests from iconic venues to come work with them. Because after all, the Candlelight events or any other events that we take them are very high profile, high quality, and venue owners just like them. But I think the interesting thing is on how we curate them. It's not that we curate them necessarily, but what we do is apply technology to understand where people are going to be more eager to go. So many times we leverage our secret media network. You may have heard of Madrid Secreto, Barcelona Secreto, Secret NYC. It's present. It's a media outlet present in almost 600 cities worldwide, and we use that to understand how people engage with one content or the other, with one venue or the other, so that we can test what's the real demand behind the content that we're taking to the market. So by, I don't know, launching an article in secret media or by launching a post in Instagram or in TikTok, you can measure how many people are interacting with that, how many people are actually liking the content or commenting or sharing the content or opening a CRM newsletter, right? So with that, you're able to very, very mathematically understand what's the real impact that that content is going to have on the demand. And that also applies to the venue side.
No, and I think that is very important that you don't just look at ticket sales. You look at actually how the user behaves, you identify patterns, I think that cross interest, and I think that you have a body of knowledge which allows you to play a big role in identifying what to do next. And we will talk about that in a minute. I wanted to also tap into technology, the role that technology plays in the business, in the business of Fever. At the School of Architecture and Design, we always say that technology should serve people and not all the way around. So Fever is a tech powerhouse, I think. But at the same time, your final delivery, if you want, is actually delivered in the real world.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about how you balance that data-driven, tech-driven algorithms and the sort of human experience.
All right, that's a very interesting question. So fully agree that technology needs to be the means to deliver emotion and to deliver contempt to the audiences, right? So even if we build anticipation online, after all, people like to feel in person, and they are gonna be more or less happy with what they do in person, right? So we love our algorithm in Fever, but it is not a means per se. There is an objective behind those algorithms. So they are important to understand demand, as I was saying at the very beginning, right before. But they are also very important to use algorithms, data, and analytics to understand how people are engaging and how people are satisfying themselves, or how are they satisfied with whatever content we're giving them from an physical experience. So let's say you have in one of these venues, you have one experience that takes, it's not a one-off, but it's a few days, right? So an immersive experience. And you have it open for 2 weeks or 2 months, which is a normal thing, right? It is very important to design it in a way, applying good taste, applying, of course, common sense, applying knowledge and insights that you may have from your previous experiences, but then it's very important to leverage technology once the people are going to the places and experiences and giving that feedback on overall the experience, but then of each of the different pieces of the experiences itself, from the technological journey to get the ticket, from to the moment they enter it through the door and then they get out of the door, all that journey needs to be mapped. We need to ask the people, how are they liking it? What are the things that could be improved? What are the things that are working? What are the things that are not? And day to day, day by day, we need to be sharing this content with the venue owners, with the IP owners, with that person who organizes immersive experience, so that they can shape the experience day to day, and afterwards increase the satisfaction. This is one of the keys that's going to help that content then scale. So we've seen that you may have a very good experience in theory, but if you put it at the disposal of the audience and people really don't like it, they're not satisfied with the content, the quality is not there, and they just feel like there's something sketchy here, that content, it's not going to sell in that piece, but then for sure it's not going to scale globally.
Yeah. Okay. When I was listening to you, I was just wondering, what have you identified that is the main trigger to make people like something or not? And I know that this is a very difficult question.
I wish I knew that.
But I wonder if, one would assume certain kind of stereotypes, perhaps generation belonging. Maybe you belong to a certain generation, and that means that you like a certain thing, or maybe it's subculture. I wonder if there is any factor that you've identified that you think, well, this is one of the main drivers which makes people have a common or shared interest.
That's a very, very difficult question. And it doesn't depend on the age of anyone. I think it depends more on the content they're interacting with. So any of us, today we're buying an F1 ticket. The day after that, we're buying a Bad Bunny ticket for the concert, and then the day after that we're getting a QR ticket to visit the Pope or to go to a museum, and we're all the same, but we take those decisions based on different drivers. So what we do at Fever is understand per each of the verticals that we work in, and in each of the countries, actually in each of the cities where we work in, what are the key elements that drive decisions. And then what we do is we have a global map. Actually, we get hundreds of millions of data points per month. And we have these global maps of trends that are emerging in some of the countries. And we know, because we've seen it evolving over time, that the trends that are emerging in South Korea are then going to be adopted in North America. And if it's adopted in North America, the probability that it then comes to Europe or comes to Latin America, it's higher. So we just like to understand all those trends, but I'm afraid there's not a one-size-fits-all. You need to be carefully considering curves, how they compare to other curves, how steep they are, and then infusioning a lot of data points to get to that answer.
Okay, I was trying to tap into one of the secrets that you may actually share with us. And we are getting to, to the last sort of 5 minutes, and I was just wondering, because here we have, probably an audience of entrepreneurs or people interested in the cultural sector, maybe even doing some sort of a startup. And I was just wondering, how do you see the ecosystem of creators, and whether you see Fiverr working eventually with that ecosystem?
Indeed. So I think coming back to something that we mentioned before, the ecosystem of creators is amazing and incredible. So there's content everywhere, very good quality content, very, very potentially profitable concepts that could be taken to many places. So being also a little bit acid, if I may, what we believe that is preventing part of that ecosystem to go big and scale and become very profitable is on that they're still lacking some exposure to technology, or maybe to that intersection between creation, taste, technology, financial acumen also. So that when you take all that into account, you're going to be able to take proper decisions on how big you need to plan your CapEx for. How are you going to optimize your OpEx? How are you going to be deciding what are the best next moves for your content? And let me give you two examples here. Moving away from necessarily from venues. Maybe some of you know Olivia Dean. She's a singer from the UK. She started selling tickets through one of our platforms for small London places, 200 people, 300 people. But we started seeing that there was a lot of untapped demand, that people would love to see her, but there weren't more tickets. So whenever we see how many people are interacting with the content, whenever we saw that people were saving the posts and actually clicking on the, ¿cómo se dice? La cuenta atrás.
What?
La cuenta atrás de un evento.
Like countdown.
All right. You start measuring how big the audience is. So we started telling the promoters of Olivia, hey, you guys have something which we haven't seen. So why don't you, instead of going for 5 days for her tour, why don't you go for 15 days? Because we do believe it's going to be enough audience. Well, today she's ultra profitable and she's filling places of 80,000 people in the UK. She also has a Grammy. Well, that's the power of technology, no? So that's part of the things that creators they need to be open to this technology to be able to scale profitably.
Very interesting, and I think that is great to have illustrated it with a real example. As a final question, because we have only 2 or 3 more minutes, I was wondering if any of us wanted to to sort of to capture value and evolve it into an idea or sort of a proposition which involves culture, tech, and profit. Where should we be looking at? Where is the next thing coming from?
I think we haven't mentioned something which is important, which is AI.
Okay. Very, very, it was a big, like let's say, a white elephant in the room.
Yes. And I'm going to say, we need to be, so again, coming to my prior answer, they need to be looking at the intersection between art, science, data, and technology. And AI is the big elephant in the room. We need to be leveraging that, but without forgetting that the final decision or the final output of of the business plan needs to be driven by a human. So we cannot just rely on AI or rely on technology just because, but we need to be bringing critical thinking to the table to make sure that whichever decision we take, it's going to be well taken and sound.
Well, I think that with this, I would say that we've almost have a perfect closing. And I think that as a takeaway for everybody, I would think that the future of culture isn't fixed, isn't stationary. Seems very agile, in flow. You mentioned the impact of AI, that it's for us to watch. But it seems that although tech is a big part, and Fever is a very good example of how it's been used, it still belongs very much into the real world. And I know that you develop immersive experiences and everything, and now in Primavera Sound in Barcelona is taking place, and you have a big part there as a company. But would you agree that the real world and people in the real world is still the main key element?
Indeed, 100%.
Well, we are all here in the real world, so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rocío, for being here. Let's give her a big applause. Thank you.
Oh, gracias, Cristina.